Welcome to the new Nuggets front office. The old Nuggets front office, basically, only not Tim Connelly. We'll talk about the additions of John Wallace, as well as Ben Tenzer being promoted to Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, what this means for Denver, and why we have so many questions. All that and more coming up on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day, being with us every day. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us all throughout this offseason. Lots to talk about, lots to consider, lots to discuss. Probably not a lot going to happen, but we'll talk about that too. And to do so, joined today, I'm Matt Moore. I wrote the Denver Dig. I'll have reaction to this news and more over there. Ryan Blackburn from Mile High Sports. He's got a write-up on the draft and how if the Nuggets want to get involved, how they can. I want to ask Ryan about that later. Also joining us is Swipa. He's on Twitter and YouTube. Swipa Cam. Check him out. All the stuff. Also on Player's Choice, which is an excellent program that you should check out as well. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. John Wallace returns to the Nuggets after being a member of the front office for several years under Tim Connelly. He left to join Tim in Minnesota and now returns as the Executive Vice President of Player Development. He joins Ben Tenzer, who will be Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations. So there are two regional managers, vice presidents in charge of different sections of the front office operations. The way it's kind of been suggested is that Tenzer is going to handle the business side, the cap side, and the relationship building and team roster construct and basketball side, on-court stuff will be handled by Wallace, which is an interesting kind of split. We'll get into some of the history of how the Nuggets have approached this. I wanted to drive today because I don't have as much to say about this, and I want to give Ryan and Swipa kind of room because I think we have more questions than answers. Ryan, what is like the first big question that you think you have here?
The very first one is, okay, so what is everybody going to be doing on June 30th is really like, and really throughout this entire process, throughout this entire offseason, there are so many things that the Nuggets have to take care of. There's so many things that everybody is going to be responsible for at this point. And I just don't have a lot of clarity on like who's going to be handling what conversations and how the Nuggets are going to get better. But like, look, we've seen this happen before with the Nuggets organization where they've split up responsibilities for the general manager. I just don't necessarily think that it worked very well. And having to go back and like revisit that doesn't seem like a great idea. I was just surprised that they didn't go with the president of basketball operations and general manager structure that we had been talking about ad nauseum. Like that seemed like the most straightforward way to do this, and it just seems like it got more complicated.
Well, I mean, given that this seems like a very reasonable billionaire response to a problem, and in that I say, I didn't have enough oversight, and I wasn't as involved as I should have been, and the ship fell apart. Well, the best course of correction is to be even more involved and basically serve as the president of basketball operations myself to some degree. Now, that doesn't mean he will not, and Josh Kroenke, allow and I think delegate responsibilities to the other two. But it does get a feeling for me that he is going to be more directly involved in a lot of the decision-making on some of the day-to-day stuff, and including on the basketball side. And you split the responsibilities to allow for Tenzer to do seemingly what he is best at. And then on the other end, then to allow Wallace to do what he is best at. So this is going to be an interesting fit. I'm actually curious to see how this is going to kind of lay itself out over the course of the year. Are they going to have conflicting strategies, or will there be one singular vision when it comes to developing the roster and the player? will it be split down the middle 50-50? That if one side says that, hey, I want to add so-and-so player to this roster, I want willing to make moves in order to make that happen, will Tenzer then on the other end just be like, you know what? Okay, well, we'll move the money around. This is how you can make that work. Or is it going to be more collaborative where you're allowing for both of them to have an equal say in the same things? Again, I truly have no idea. When I sent in the text chat earlier, this kind of reminds me of Jerry and Stephen Jones with the Dallas Cowboys, where Stephen Jones kind of oversees the drafting. And you saw a shift in personnel where Stephen Jones was very much focused on offensive line when they got Travis Frederick, and they ended up getting an elite offensive line and got all these players to build the interior of the roster. Is Wallace going to have his own vision in terms of the kind of players he wants to see on the unit and stuff as well? I'm curious to see how it all lays out, but this does feel like a very interesting situation and dynamic that we will see unfold.
I think maybe the optimistic way of looking at this is that I think it's always good to have a collaborative effort of multiple voices in the room. I just think that that's always a better approach. I like that much better than I do the very, dictatorial approach that a lot of, I think, front offices take, which is like the buck stops here, right? I think it's better to have a bunch of smart people in a room that disagree, and you come out with the best answer. The key there is you still need a leader. And that to me is my question here is, who's the leader of the front office? And if that answer is Josh Kroenke, I think it's understandable for Nuggets fans to be concerned. Because if there's problems in the locker room, or there's an issue with a player, or there's an issue with the coach again, or there's all these, whatever problems arise, there's got to be someone at the head to lead them through that trouble. And if both of them are like, well, I'm not really in charge, we're both in charge, and then Josh is in charge, and Josh is in England, then what? That to me is like a reasonable question, Ryan.
Of course. Like, Josh has so many responsibilities already that I want to hear it from him, that if he is going to take a more hands-on approach with the Nuggets, that he's going to be taking a step back in other places, that he's going to be really dedicating a lot of his time, a lot of his focus on the Nuggets. Because look, he's made good decisions for Denver before. He's made bad decisions for Denver before, but he's also like been around and had responsibilities and made decisions for this team before. So like, if he is the leader, then okay. But you need to not be pulled in so many different directions that you can actually really laser focus in on what the team needs and what is expected and how you get the job done. That's a very, very tall task for somebody that's being pulled so many different ways.
What do you
Question.
got,
Cody brought this up. Have 3 first-timers and Adam and Tenzer and Wallace give me anxiety. It does feel, though, on two ends with the Kroenkes, that the same thing that has made them successful, finding first-time talent in terms of their front office stuff with Sai Ujiri, Tim Connolly, Calvin Booth, now Tenzer, now Wallace. They're basically saying that we still believe in our philosophy and our methodology. But now we believe in ourselves even more, Matt Moore. Now Josh is going to be sitting at the head of the table and saying that not only am I appointing a first-timer, I have been here this whole time. Now I'm going to help them direct where the ship needs to go because I know best in some sense. And I don't know if that's going to be a hard hand of guidance. It could just simply be a soft, gentle hand of billionaire guidance. It's very possible. But it's like they still believe in what they're doing. And so what I hope this is not going to be hubris on behalf of the Kroenkes, that the solution to the issues that have plagued this organization for the last 2 years, from top to bottom, the solution to that problem is more me. And I'm curious to see how that plays itself out in the long term.
Coming up, we'll talk about some of that problem, what I kind of think is a whack-a-mole issue for the Kroenkes, plus why I'm concerned about the similarities to a previous organizational structure. All that coming up on Locked On Nuggets. I'll get it. OLIPOP is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda but want something that supports their health. With just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can, OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are loaded with sugar, like 39 grams in a regular Coke or 44 grams in an orange Fanta. OLIPOP flips that script, which is a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. I drank a lot of soda coming up when I was growing up, because that's how it was in the 80s, and I've gotten off of it. But the thing about OLIPOP is that you're able to get like good stuff for your gut and have that kind of taste. I really like carbonation, and so it gives me the best of both worlds. Get a free can of OLIPOP. Just buy any 2 cans in store, and they'll reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find OLIPOP near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Monday, reacting to the news about the new Nuggets front office. So Swipa kind of made reference to like that gentle hand theory, right? And like the idea would be, okay, the two work together and they come up with a trade and they decide that we need to, we'll do a hypothetical. We need to trade Zeke Naji. His value's gotten good enough. We can make a deal. But we have to attach the 2031 to get this asset that we want. And then they go to Josh and Josh weighs in and goes, yes or no. And like, that's how that winds up working out. So that's an okay structure. That's not necessarily different from how it was under Tim Conley or Calvin Booth. Like ownership always still has say over these trades. So that's not necessarily different. But one of the things, though, I think is if instead this is, okay, there's a problem with the Nuggets and Josh is trying to handle that. But now, oh, no, there's a problem with Arsenal. Got to go handle that. Oh, no, there's a problem with the Rams and he needs to go meet for this, or all of the business interests. What happens if those things coincide with critical times for the Nuggets to make key decisions? How present can he be? How much authority do they have to be able to do this? So that to me is like a way to be able to a concern that I have about this. That's my noise, by the way. My WhatsApp is going off because my brother's texting me. I apologize. But that's where I'm at, Ryan, as far as like being concerned about the structure.
Of course. And it would be impossible to not be concerned. And usually when you don't go in a traditional direction where you can at least see, and like I think a lot of Nuggets fans were hoping for somebody like Bob Myers. We're hoping for somebody like Tim Connolly, somebody that has been in this situation before, to Swipa's point that you need like veterans. You need somebody who has been in these situations before, has gone through these, like has jumped through these hoops when talking with ownership. Like how are Ben Tenzer and John Wallace going to approach Josh Kroenke on these things and say, this is something that we have to do. This is a requirement. Are they going to be able to make the right decisions and be able to get Josh and then Stan in order to be able to see those right decisions and how consistent that is? I thought it was pretty notable that, by the way, that when Shams tweeted this out, that he tweeted that they would report to Josh Kroenke and not Stan Kroenke specifically. That is a concern.
Owner Stan Kroenke, by the way,
make
sure that's very clear.
Owner/governor. This is a very, very important distinction there. But like, there is still so much questioning that I have in terms of what is actually going to happen. And I tend to think that it's not something that you feel very excited about. It's not something that you feel very confident about, especially for a team in Denver that is in this very tenuous situation where you could either continue what you're doing and try to run it back, and maybe you get luckier next year.
Ron, does it give you any encouragement, though, that they were in the KD talks at all, given the background noise?
I don't think that they were ever seriously in the KD talks. They might have
seriously mean.
So the ESPN, like what Cam is referencing is that the ESPN article was basically had Denver as one of the wild card teams attached right at the end of the list of teams. There were like 7 total that were listed beyond Houston, and Denver was one of them. So like, does that mean that Denver had the 7th best trade offer for?
No. So I guess seriously in the inquiring, because Kevin Durant told the Phoenix Suns where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
He didn't name Denver. So Denver on their own accord is seeked out the opportunity is what I'm saying. So does it say something to you then that even if they weren't named, they still had the mindset that we need to get better? Let's see what the cost would be here. And I'm saying that like obviously it's one thing, but I guess the best way to set this up, Ryan, what would you like this new regime to be? What would you like the tone and tenor of this new regime to be?
I would like it to be a group that is willing and able to go to ownership or vice chairmanship and be able to dictate to them that this is how you get better as a basketball team, as a basketball organization, whatever that is, and like try to fight through, like not and like we've talked about this. Matt and I talked about this in terms of not fighting, but being able to massage the preconceived notions and be able to kind of work through some of those disagreements, and also make sure that you're getting better as an organization with it. But like, I just don't know that Ben and John are going to be able to do that personally.
You want them to be able, let's be plain spoken here, Ryan. You want them to be able to convince ownership they need to break up the core four. Yes.
That's my personal belief. But like, also, look, if they don't have the same beliefs as me, then I at least need to see them pulling in the direction that adds talent to the roster and doesn't waste their roster spots like they have over the past 2 years.
Okay. I want to ask you both about the inexperience factor, because people are saying this a lot with the first time thing, like Swipa mentioned from Cody, etc. I'm not trying to defend the move. I have no idea how this is going to work out. I have no idea. We won't know until we see it. What I will say is there is always risk on the other side of this, which is an experienced veteran, strong hand. Do you know what happens then a lot of the times is that they are stubborn. It creates tension inside the organization. It rubs a lot of people the wrong way. We get to a toxic environment we had last year. And those people are oftentimes set in their ways, which are outdated because they had success previously in a very different era of the NBA. Youth and experience and learning on the job means that you're a lot more open to flexibility, which I think is what Nuggets fans want. So Cam, from that perspective, I do think that probably the inexperience thing has some upsides. I understand being like, you want somebody that has experience, but it depends on what that experience is and how recent it is and what that experience means for how you approach building a team.
Well, let's give you a little positive here. John Wallace was with the Connollys, and he was a part of the tenure that traded Karl-Anthony Towns away. They broke up one of their franchise's 3 best players ever. I think that's safe 3 best players ever that have played for that organization. And they traded him away, let's say for a 2-for-1 with the Knicks to get Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. They realized that they needed to make adjustment to the roster. They traded for Rudy Gobert, and they did what they had to do to get better. And Rudy Gobert ended up being a linchpin for them being a back-to-back Western Conference Finals team. So perhaps the positivity side is John is a younger person. John is of the mindset that in order to build an elite team, there are certain things that you need. Perhaps he is going to be the engine that helps the Denver Nuggets to make real structural changes to the roster that are more in line with the modern NBA in 2025. So the positivity in me says, you know what? It's definitely possible that John is going to take a similar view of how you build a team around what they did in Minnesota and then subsequently bring back to Denver. And Denver knows they also need to get the core 4 adjusted and changed, i.e. because of the Kevin Durant potential deal that they tried to go after. Now, to Josh Kroenke. Reportedly, Josh Kroenke said way before the trade deadline that Michael Porter Jr. was off the table for a trade. So is Josh going to be able to recognize that in order for this team to move forward, they might need to make changes with the core 4, or at least in the kind of free agents they're bringing into the building? And will John Wallace and will Ben Tenzer, will they be allowed to do that? I'm going to go with the positive side that perhaps. Go ahead, Matt.
So I think there's an important distinction to be made here, and it relates to the Kevin Durant conversation. They called because almost every team in the league called. Every team that was within, like the Raptors, made serious calls because it's Kevin Durant. And so you make a serious call there.
Yep.
And I think that where this kind of branches in is, I think that maybe what has occurred, and there is a disconnect here, and that's one of the reasons why I think Kroenke was so adamant against those reports. And like I've reported that I have been told that the front office was under the belief they were not to move Porter for the deals that were on the table, and that the market was not good enough to trade him. The difference here, and this is how every front office I talk to says, is like they never want to speak in absolutes. It's not this guy's off the table, this guy's on the table.
Yeah.
It's you're going to have to come with an offer that's going to absolutely blow us away. If someone comes in with an offer that is beyond how the Nuggets feel about Michael Porter Jr., they'll entertain that trade request or trade offer, and they might do it if it's what's in the best interest of the organization long term. But the difference here was, like, we were actively even talking about just moving Porter to get off of the contract and to be able to turn it into multiple assets. That is not where they are. And I still believe that's the best thing for them to do. I think they should do it. I think they should trade Porter for multiple smaller contracts. I think that is what you need in the new CBA. But they're of the opinion that Porter is more valuable than that. And so that to me is like how to kind of parse through this it's about what's on the market, which we don't know for a fact, and about whether or not that's worth it from their estimation of what Porter's worth is to this team.
Kevin Durant is somebody you have to have a conversation about. You have to like tap into that and see if there's at least any possibility. Like that's just the kind of player, the kind of talent that he is. So I'm not surprised that they went that direction. Kind of surprised that it went as far as it did, that they got their name in a report, because I don't think that they would make the move that it would take and the assets that it would take in order to actually move him. But who knows? Like maybe I'm wrong about that. And maybe that does signify that they are a little bit more willing to change than previously reported.
All right. Up next, let's talk more about this conversation. And I want to know about, from the two of them, whether they think the Nuggets should bother with getting involved on draft night with actual picks. We'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Nuggets. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Those long-term goals are painful and annoying, but they're going to be so worth it, and Monarch Money can help you get to where you want to go. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. The comments are negative, but I've received some advice from people that I trust and respect, that I have to remember that the people that oftentimes come into the comments are probably the most likely to have negative views of this. And so that to me makes a little bit of sense, because I honestly do think, like, your average Nuggets fan, here's the thing. Your average Nuggets fan, I don't think, cares who's in charge. They're never going to see these people. By the way, you're going to be introduced to John Wallace and Ben Tenzer officially tomorrow. There's a press conference that's just been scheduled. So they'll speak with the media alongside Josh Kroenke tomorrow. But I do think that, like, you care about the roster. And this has always been the Kroenke's approach, which is like, look, we don't skimp on salary. We've been in the luxury tax. We're going to be in the luxury tax again. We've spent on players. Like, the criticism now is they've spent too much on players. Think about that. For a team that is often criticized for not spending enough, et cetera, et cetera. No, like, that's the thing, right?
I think the criticism is how
like,
you spend the money on players. More, you know.
Yeah, the thing is that they ducked the second apron on purpose last year, or this past season,
for flexibility, and then didn't use the flexibility. So I think it's like you gotta dive in somewhere. You know what I mean? It's like we're gonna escape the cap. because we don't want the penalties. But we're going to avoid the penalty to have the flexibility, that you don't use the flexibility, but then you have no flexibility. After all,
look, that's fine. And there were actual tangible on-court reasons for them not to go into the second apron. And I do think that Christian Braun became a better player because of it. But like, I also just think that there are so many different factors that we are still trying to figure out about this new CBA. And I'm not sure what the best way to run the team is. So they chose a path, and it's unfortunate that like it doesn't. You lose an asset because of it. Who knows?
I think we're also Denver. I mean, relative to the market, Matt, I feel like Denver's pretty soft on like players and like even performance stuff because, you know, I was thinking about this yesterday during the final. Like Josh Giddey played well for the Thunder last year. He had a good season, but he got, you know, once they realized he was something that they didn't need, they literally like got rid of him on a hot steaming boat. For Alex Caruso. And so I think some of this is like finding the fit for your roster. I think Denver, the thing they need to develop in, and from a front office standpoint, is finding actual players that fit where the roster is. I think that's where they have fallen short.
A lot of it for you, I think, is, correct me if I'm wrong, Swipa. A lot of it for you, it just seems like you really badly want them to get a steal. Because like Giddey for Caruso was a steal. And we knew it at the time. Everyone screamed about it. I got texts from front office people being like, how did he do this without including a pick? Like, and everything that we're kind of talking about is based off of the idea of like, what if you trade Zeke Naji for Ayo Dosunmu? And it's like, well, Ayo Dosunmu is a good player.
Well, no, I don't think steal is a proper word. I think there's archetypes of players that I think fit in Denver better than others. I don't think Hunter Tyson, Dario Saric, and Jalen Pickett are archetypes for Denver. Is that fair?
Where do they? What team are those archetypes good for?
But that's the problem, isn't it? Is that they don't have enough good players.
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
Is that?
They don't have enough. They don't have enough good players to trade for the good players that you want them to get, and that's the problem. Is like until they clear these things off of the roster, they're not going to be able to. Like that to me is the key issue here is like they're just locked in. One of the many mistakes that Booth made was not just we're going to go young. It was we are locked in on being young. This is the plan, right? Like Jalen's Jalen's got what, one more year? Yes.
Yeah.
Pickett.
Yeah.
So
Pickett and Tyson have the same deal. They're both locked in for one more year.
Zeke's got 2 more.
3.
God. So that's the thing is like you're locked in on these guys that you can't.
But that's Josh Kroenke's answer is more me. The reason that happened because I wasn't involved enough. So now I'm more involved. Therefore, it won't happen again. Is what he's estimating.
By the way, so some people have asked this question of like who's going to handle the relationship side of things, and the answer is probably like Wallace is it's interesting. I don't know John. I never got to know John when he was here. But what I've heard about John is that he is soft-spoken, but very good at building relationships, which I think is like an interesting dichotomy. And that's kind of how it's like kind of spoken of. Ben is very positive and very like I've almost never seen Ben not smiling. Like Ben's always like he's just a very like he's a pretty happy guy whenever I see him. And so I don't think they'll have trouble with the managing relationships part of this, even if it's not like a huge strength, because they'll build those relationships in the job. So I don't necessarily think it's like if they were looking to get a superstar, you need those relationships, but they're not looking to do that. They're looking to get role players, which I think you can get without. My view.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see whether they're able to pull it off because it's 2 days before the draft. All these conversations have basically already happened. And like, if their answer is just let's bring back Bruce Brown and let's sign a minimum free agent and run it back, I don't think that's good enough personally.
I mean, you gotta see who it is though. Like if they get really good players on minimum contracts, that changes the equation here. If they get, especially because I think there's gonna be a crunch on those guys. I was looking at the roster and like there's a lot, like, or the free agents, like, there's a lot of guys. Like if they are able to add like Tyus Jones, if Tyus Jones agrees to another minimum and he comes here, are you gonna feel better?
Sure, because I value him at a taxpayer mid-level, and like if he comes for a minimum, that would be great.
Oh man, Swipa thinks he sucks. I don't.
Didn't say that either. But again, a small, not defending, not athletic point guard is not something I would bring into the building for playoff minutes. But that's just me. Like I said, I have my own philosophy too. So I also want to acknowledge I have my own bias towards against players like that.
Yeah.
In the playoff position.
All right. So let's say they don't do anything in the draft. Let's say they've got 3 roster spots that they have available.
Mhm.
Let's say they bring in Bruce Brown for the taxpayer mid-level, Tyus Jones on a minimum, and Daniel Tice on a minimum. Is that a championship team?
Bruce Brown, who and Daniel?
Bruce Brown, Tyus Jones, Daniel Tice.
No.
Sub in Tyus Jones for whoever you prefer. Swipe if you got a name.
Delano Banton.
I mean, can they play in the playoff, Matt? Do you think those are like that was the difference between this year? I think beating the Thunder or not. It's like they just didn't have players that can play in the playoffs.
I don't agree, but that's okay. I think that's
the injuries. Just the injuries to the starters.
I don't think they were ever beating the Thunder. I just don't think they were good enough. I think they stole game 1, and that switched the series.
Wait a minute, but they were in game 7 though.
I know, but I don't go off of like that. I don't think that result was as valid as you do because you predicted it to go that way. So
the Pacers series went 7, so you also don't think that should have won 7?
I think the Pacers got the kind of outcome that they needed, but the Pacers were also much better than Denver. I thought the Pacers were much better than Denver. I think both those series went 7, but I do not think that those were equal teams.
Well, I know, but it did go 7 though. I guess what I'm saying is like,
right. I don't go off of results like that. I just don't go off of results like that. Like it's entirely contextual. It's okay. We'll argue about this after. But I do think like, I don't know. I'm in between the two of you because I'm like, I don't think they're one guy away, but I don't know what roster Ryan's expecting here. Like, I don't know. I really don't, Ryan. Like,
that's what I'm saying is like, if they're just running it back like that, then that's
also like Ryan. The Celtics legitimately just had like 6 guys when they won the title. It was like Sam Pressure, Luke Cornett for a minute, Xavier Tillman maybe got it, but like it was just the 6 guys. That was it. It was just the 6 guys, right? And we know that 5 of these guys are good enough to help you win a championship.
Are they still?
Yeah, I mean I think that's probably where we divide is like you feel much lower on where the roster is now compared to 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think this is the best 4-4 in the NBA. I don't.
Yeah, and you don't think that they'll get better either. You think that they'll only
no.
Which one do you think will get better, Matt?
Oh, I just think that they can have bounce back seasons. I just think they can. I've just seen like seasons where it's like Chris Middleton didn't have a good season. Chris Middleton had a great season. Chris Middleton didn't have a great season. Chris Middleton had a great season. Like these things are not linear. Ryan's correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but it feels like you seem to think that things are much more linear, where it's like guys go up and then they go down.
I think that they are past the curve. Yeah, I do.
What do you? So I guess if it's not linear, Jamal Murray is possible he has a progressive year where it puts him in like near all NBA level season.
Yeah.
Then that would change the focus of the team. Well, I mean, I agree with that though. Like if Jamal Murray was an all NBA level player, the team would be much
there's
better.
a difference between like will and can, Ryan. But like we know he's capable of it. And it's okay to be like, I don't think he will. That's fine. I agree with you. He probably, if you're like,
remember, you're talking to doom and gloom. Okay, you got to like ride the wave. You know, right now I'm the mediator between both of you in this reality.
Look,
there's a reality. I just watched Dark, by the way, great show. There's a reality. There is a world in which Jamal Murray is an All NBA player. Yeah. It's just, can we get that world to merge with this world? And then he's 24, great efficiency, 6.5 assists. Just cooking the league. Nuggets are the 2 seed. You know what I mean? There's a possibility.
I've kept asking that question to you guys for multiple years, and every time you guys are like, "Nah, it's probably not happening." Like,
no,
Swipe was more positive. Matt has never been in that camp in terms of this is an actual possibility. Ever?
No, I've said it can happen. I just said it won't. Again, there's can and will. And you gave
a possibility, then gave a definitive.
you seem like for you, it's like if you don't think that it will happen, it can't.
I just don't think it's worth betting on again.
Sure, but there's also
why bet on something that's like got a 10% or 15% chance of happening? Like,
so I think Ryan is saying if the margins are Jamal stays at a 21-6 regular Jamal, which is an okay player in the regular season, like a CJ McCollum level player, and then Aaron Gordon stays at this level, but hopefully defense picks up. Porter stays at the level he's played at. You're going to need on the margins. You need support pieces. You need tanks to come in to like to help the front line.
Like,
you know what I mean? I think he's saying you need more to stabilize the fact that your floor and ceiling are like contingent on these things happening that are probably going to remain the same. I think is what he's saying. So you would need a better roster behind them.
It's just not something that I think is like, look, they're going to bet on it. I don't think that we are like, we're not in a situation anymore where they're actually going to break this thing up.
I personally am not going to spend a year just being like, they're screwed. There's no point. I personally am not going to do that. I'm going to spend a year being like, there's a range of outcomes and we'll see and talk about it as it happens. We didn't get to the draft today. We'll get to it later this week. We'll talk more about that conversation. Plus all the other news. We'll get you a reaction from the press conference tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Follow us on socials. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets. Eeyore.